Okay, my name is Lawrence McGlynn, and you're listening to the award-winning Philadelphia Hall Monitor here on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia, on Comcast Channel 66, and streaming live at phillycam.org. You can find us on Blue Sky at Hall Monitor WPPM, on our website www.hallmonitor.org, or on Facebook at PHMWPPM. Starting on the program, Lisa Haver will get us caught up on all things school-related, and Denise Clay Murray and I will discuss this week's budget meetings. Denise, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I would say this about budget. Yesterday's hearings were a little more interesting than today's, believe it or not. And I'll get into that in a little bit as to why I think that's the case. And we'll see if you agree. But before we do that, we're going to bring on Lisa Haver, who we published a piece from her today. There she is. Lisa, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you, Larry? Hey, Denise.
Hey.
So tell us a little bit about your piece that we published today.
Well, I'm just really here tonight to say how happy everybody is that the school district put out a really comprehensive, thoughtful plan, and that they are going to be, carrying out the will of the people.
I'm not so sure that's how you really.
I mean, the sarcasm just like smacked me upside the head.
Happy April 1st. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. Just celebrating. No, there's a lot of things that really have to be clarified, and I try to put that in the piece that we are running today. And since I saw you guys last, when would that have been? February. So there was a town hall at 440 in front of the school board on March 12th. There was a regular action meeting last week, March 26th. But as I noted in my piece, there were, let's just say on March 26th, about 15 students, 45. When you take everybody, students, adults, elected officials, union officials, there were like 50 or 60 people. And after those 50 or 60 people were done, there was not a single response from any board member. Like when Dr. Watlington gives his remarks, or say the CFO or the CAO give their remarks, and then President Reginald Streeter will say, does any member of the board have any questions or comments, or he will poll them. When the public speakers were done last week, it was just, okay, and now we're going to vote on our action items. I was like, I thought that was shocking, and maybe I shouldn't be shocked about that anymore. But I mean, there were young students from Moffett Elementary that trying to save their school. There was one student who came up with his mother, again from Moffett, talking about the autistic support program. I don't know how you, as a person in a position of leadership, just sit there and then when they're done, you just move on and you don't say anything. I don't understand how anybody could see that as a leadership in a governing body that holds the future of the school district and the city's children, and a 4.5, I think it's 4.7 billion dollar budget. I don't understand that, but that's where we are. So as I had mentioned before, the Alliance for Philadelphia Public Schools, which I'm a coordinator, we've attended the community meetings, the board meetings, the town halls, the city hall hearings. We have talked to people, we have gathered information, but we found that we really needed to take a really deep dive into the plan, which is this monstrosity. I would say it looks like a phone book, but nobody knows what that is anymore. But it's big. And so Deborah Girl, another APS member, and I went through this. And there are 217 public schools in the district, not including charter schools. And we went through every single one. And we thought it was really a slog, but that's okay. But we thought it was important because one of the things I want to get to is how much disinformation there has been, and the use of even deceptive language. So Larry, if you want to pull that PowerPoint up, I can try to We had signs at the town hall that said nobody wants this, they don't care. And for Eagles fans, that probably resonates. Nobody likes this. We don't care. And it just feels like that. When I say nobody, let me clarify. Nobody except for 4 people. Again, having gone to the board meetings, council meetings, et cetera, having all the 8,000, I believe it was, surveys that the district got response to. There have been hundreds and hundreds of people who have come to all kinds of meetings and said, we don't want this. We don't want this. And that's not including the people that we'll get to in a minute who didn't even know about this and didn't get a chance to say, we don't want this. So I want to say first, there's a lot of things in this plan. Okay, thanks. Besides the 18 closures, and I said before, I think the inquiry's done a tremendous job of going to every single, hold on, I'm losing my voice because of all these meetings. So I just want to grab my tea. 18 school closures, down from 20, and the 2 were taken off the list, and everybody's very happy for them. But Watlington, Superintendent Tony Watlington, never really gave a reason why those 2 were taken off and the other 18 were not. I don't know. But want to remind people, in addition to the 18 closures, 12 co-locations, 8 buildings to be given to the city, grade band changes. In other words, your K-5 school may go to K-4. Your K-8 school may go to K-5. Grade band changes in those 34 schools, 16 catchment areas to be redrawn. That would affect approximately 33 schools and over 20 zip codes. And really, when you talk about catchment areas, you're talking about more than that. But according to the book, that's what we were able to count. And modernization projects at 159 schools that will not begin until 2032. Now, the district has held no hearings on any of those recommendations. None. I think sometimes people think, oh gosh, it's a shame they're closing 18 schools. There's so much more going on. So as I said, we looked into this and took a really deep dive into it. And here's some of the things that we think are the crucial points that we need to get to. The plan is based on imaginary funding. And I say that literally. And on February 17th, in City Council, a number of council members asked Dr. Watlington about the funding because this is what it says for most of the items. If the district is granted additional government funding and philanthropic funding is like, which government? The state government that we have to sue and they still don't give us money? Mm-hmm. Some of the council members said to Dr. Watlington, like, okay, which philanthropies? And I can't name them at this time. And like, well, then how are they in the plan? So that should give people an idea, like, as we said, like magical thinking based on imaginary funding. The plan uses incorrect data and deceptive terms. This has happened in many meetings. I cited one in my commentary. The latest one was last week. That's a middle school teacher who said, you gave us a 59% utilization score. Actually, 85% of our usable space is being used. If you don't count the 4th floor, which has water damage from the roof that you haven't fixed, that we've asked you for years to fix. So the district doesn't fix the roof, lets the water come in, makes the 4th floor unusable, and then says, you're not using your space, we're closing you down. That's what I mean by incorrect data. That's only one example. Unbelievably, as Deborah Grill and I went through all this, we kept looking for where are the enrollment figures. So how do you have a capacity utilization score when there's no enrollment figures? And there literally were no enrollment figures. So I'm not sure how people are supposed to verify how well the building's being used when the district doesn't say how many students are there. Two other notable acts of, let's say, maybe gaslighting. The district keeps talking about mergers. Like, okay, when we closed Lankenau, first they said they were going to merge it with Roxborough, and then they said, okay, never mind, Saul. It's a totally meaningless statement. It means nothing. They're saying, so for example, with Lankenau, oh, okay, we'll put a environmental program in the curriculum at Saul. Great. Congratulations, Saul. So any student at Saul can apply to be in that environmental program. It's not a special program that is only going to be for kids who came from Lankenau. Not all the kids would even get into Lankenau. The teachers have to follow the contractual seniority rules. Principals would be reassigned. There's really no merging at all. And we've said to them, you should stop saying merger. It is really trying to take the edge off what is really just a brutal reality. That once you close Lankenau, it's closed. Once you close Robeson, it's closed. You can put all the honors programs you want into Bartram or wherever. There is no more Robeson. The district has given no reason for closing high schools. And again, I was at Robeson, I was at Lankenau. APS members were at a number of these schools that were closing. And so parents, students, even, we'll get to this a little bit later, council member Jamie Gautier would say, why are you closing this school? It's high achieving school. It's the building is not crumbling. It's not old. Most of the kids are getting into college. And their answer to all of that, whether it was like Lankenau or Robeson or motivation or what, was we want to put more resources into the comprehensive high schools. Like, I'd call that a non sequitur. I asked you a question and you said something that has nothing to do with the question that I asked you. And it's so, yeah, go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to say what I found fascinating when I was looking at some of the schools that they're talking about closing, particularly the high schools. These are some of the schools with the highest graduation rates in the city. And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought the whole idea here was to encourage schools that had high graduation rates to keep on doing what they're doing. And you want to close 3 of them down? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And so I will take this opportunity to say, in my opinion, as somebody who's looked at every page and gone to almost every meeting, this plan makes no sense. It has imaginary funding. It has things that they never asked people whether they even wanted. It has another point that council members made on February 17th. Where's the data that shows how this is going to work? No. So it really, truly makes no sense. I said this in council. I think I've said it every time I testified. The district's plan is so incredibly heartless and gives really, and I'm no consideration to the trauma that this is going to cause students. Like, APS was, we came together in 2012 when those school closings were happening. And we remember the kids from University City and high school and Carroll High School and the others, crying, begging, please don't close our schools. I don't see how this board, which is not state controlled and is supposed to be serving the people, can just really just so casually kick kids out of high schools, which is their second home. For a lot of kids in schools like Lankenau and Robeson, a lot of these kids, they didn't always do that well in elementary school, but they will thrive in a place like Lankenau. You're out in the woods, you're doing something really different. You may have had behavior problems in elementary school, and then you get to Robeson, it's a smaller community, and there's things there. where you really feel like you fit. I mean, that's just not been part of any conversation that's taken place well, there's no conversation at the board, let me put it that way, because they don't respond. But I just keep coming back to how heartless this plan is. It treats the students, not to mention their families, like collateral damage. They use these corporate terms like we're right sizing the district. Like, what does that mean? You're trying to fit, more people into fewer buildings? It's just shocking to me that how little of this plan, if any, I'm trying to think of any, talks about how it will affect students and their families and their emotions. It's just shocking to me.
And with the people you speak with, do you think that any closures are warranted or necessary?
No. I think you really have to say, here's where we are, and we have no choice, and there's nowhere to go. And I want to stress another point that I failed to make in that part about deceptive terms. I personally was at the very first facilities process community meeting, which was up in the Northeast, like at 5 Points in the Northeast, in September of 2024. The next one was in South Philly at Broad and Snyder. At those meetings, I should have taken a picture, but I'm sure we could find it. It said on their presentation, this is not a budget issue. And they said that at first, and then they kind of stopped saying it. And then recently, Board President Reginald Streeter, when he would talk about this, would talk about funding in the budget. And, I would just kind of yell out like, this is not a budget issue. You said this wasn't a budget issue. It's not a budget issue. The district has never said we can't afford to keep these schools open. This is just a corporate type right sizing plan. They said it's not a budget issue. It is not a budget issue.
Well, how can it not be a budget issue? Because, you're just from what you've talked about getting to this point, we've talked about closing 18 schools. We've talking about giving the city 8 buildings. And we've talked about moving kids into other schools and, changing grade levels and different things, all of which are going to have a cost connected to them. The district is looking at a $300 million deficit right now that the mayor is trying to close with a variety of taxes. So you can't say
everything that the district does eventually is a budget issue. You're either, bringing in money or you're spending money. But what they have been saying since the beginning was, we're not doing any of this because of a budget shortfall. That's what they said.
Well, I have to call
was there ever not a budget deficit? I mean, it doesn't. The $2.8 billion price tag that Watlington put on this, we have yet to see an itemized list of what that is. I don't know, 2.8 billion. According to Watlington, 1 billion of that would come from district fund. This is nominally a 10-year plan. That other 1.8 billion is coming from if the district is granted additional government and or philanthropic funding. So if you say, oh, we'll have $1.8 billion to do all of these 200 other things that we listed, then you could also say that in that 2.8 billion, you have enough money to keep Lankenau open. And, it's a choice. That's all right. The board is unelected, unaccountable. Let me list the 4 people who we have seen maybe 5. Let's start with the 4 people. Mayor Cheryl Parker said she wants this plan.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Watlington wants this plan. Now, the mayor and the superintendent, 6 or 8 weeks ago, co-wrote a op-ed in the Inquirer saying this, may I say, before the final plan was even released to the public, both of them were saying this is a great plan, we need to do it. 2 other people, one who spoke March 12th was a parent whose child does not go to Moffitt, but spoke in favor of Moffitt closing as an elementary school and becoming a middle school. And then last week on March 26th, there was a person who works at Masterman who said she's for expanding Masterman. She didn't mention the fact that Masterman is going to expand into Laura Waring School, which is on the closure list. So there are 2 people who want part of the plan, and then there's 2 people, the mayor and the superintendent, who want the plan. If you want to count Board President Reginald Streeter, I personally would. Every comment that he has made indicates that he's going to vote for the plan. He also himself, a couple weeks ago, had his commentary published in the Inquirer, giving every indication that he was going to vote for this plan. That's 5 that we know of who have either written or said or both that they want this plan. Every other person that we have heard over the past 2 years and who have filled out a survey have said, no, don't want this plan. And again, I want to say people in schools who were told after the plan was published, we're going to change your school from a K-5 to a K-4, or a K-5 to a K-8, or a K-8 to a K, who were never consulted. I know of at least 2 examples where people found this out and said, what? And then try to get meetings with the district, and they could not. Council member Jeffrey Young did intercede and did get a meeting after the district people said they wouldn't come. The council member did get a meeting because there are 2 schools closing in that Fairmount area, Robert Morris and Laura Wheeling-Wary, which would affect Beige Martin because they'd be a receiving school. Beige Martin doesn't have room to be a receiving school, but in the plan, when you look up Beige Martin, it says that if they get some funding, they'll build an addition. Now, I have my friend who taught at Beige Martin for 11 years said, what addition? There's no place to put an addition. So, it's not completely baked here. So when the board votes, and I'm not sure everybody understands this, the board is going to take 1 vote. In 2012-13, the only thing that was in their facilities master plan at that time was school closings. There were 23 school closings on the agenda April of 2013. They took a separate vote on each school. This time, as far as I can tell, and they've given no indication that it would be anything other than this, they are voting on the facilities master plan, which will be 1 vote. That'll cover the closures, the co-locations, the modernizations, the grade conversions, the catchment area, everything. Most of that, they've not had hearings on, and people have not had an opportunity to weigh in on. And even when they tried to weigh in on, they were not granted a meeting. And I know people at least 2 schools who have been told, that's just the way it is. That's the plan that's going forward.
Now, are there any plans to have any hearings on any of these closings?
Right now, there's no more hearings. I mean, I know APS and other members of the community are still talking about how we can organize to stop this. But Councilmember Jamie Gautier, I think, has been a beacon here. She's been outspoken for the past 2 months. I have to make note of this. She came to the February 23rd board meeting that ended at about quarter after midnight, and she was still there, and she did testify. She came last week. She has been there at Robeson, et cetera. And then last week, she said, okay, well, here's my plan. I have a counter proposal. This is what we're going to do. And she talked about making sure that none of the schools in her councilmanic district would close. And that would be Blankenberg Elementary and Robeson High School. I'm blanking on the third one. 3 schools that she is talking about that she does not want closed, and said, here's what we can do. Take a building in the district that is underutilized and make this a campus and make it a 12. She had a name for like Cradle to Career Campus, Mill Creek Cradle to Career Campus, something along those lines. That was kind of like saying, look, we don't have to close schools. We can think of another way to do this. We can combine spaces. We can have a different kind of program. It didn't have like every single detail or the funding, but I think what was important about what Councilmember Gautier did was to say, you don't have to just go, okay, and rubber stamp whatever plan the district comes up with, no matter how crazy it is, and no matter how much data is wrong and how much funding doesn't exist. You can come up with a counter proposal, which is what the board should have been doing for the past, 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that's leadership. You show up, you testify, and then you say, here, I'm going to show you how we can do this that doesn't cost more money and is really beneficial to the people of this community.
Now, weren't they already supposed to have taken the vote, or am I misremembering something?
Your confusion is warranted, Larry, because we've never known when they were going to take the vote. Again, you've heard me compare the board unfavorably to the School Reform Commission, and this is another example that we knew when they proposed the school closings in 2012 that they were going to vote in April 2013. We knew that. We knew how much time we had to organize, how many people we could reach out to, et cetera. Every year now it's a guess. This year it's a guess. We thought they were going to vote in March. And I really thought they were going to vote in March. Then we found out right before. I was checking the board agenda every single day. And then we found out, okay, they're not going to vote. Are they going to vote in April? Maybe. Maybe not. That's not a way to be a governing body in a major city, is to make people guess what you're going to do and when you're going to do it.
None of this has made any sense to me, And we follow government for a living here, and a lot of times things don't make sense.
You know what, though, Larry and Denise? I was thinking of this. I didn't have room to put it in there, but I'm there too, and I was there last week, and something interesting happened in City Council, where Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, I don't know that you could tell me the exact language, but basically made a motion which passed to rescind his resign to run bill. Mm-hmm. He had months ago said, we want to change the law so that city government officials don't have to resign their office in order to run, which did get, you know better than me, did move along in council to a certain extent. And then he probably, because he's an elected official and hears from his constituents, apparently he got a lot of negative response saying, we don't want this. If you're going to run for office, we want you to resign. If you're going to be in office, that's what we want you to do. And if not, and so he came back last Thursday at the council meeting and, in so many words, basically said, never mind. That's how democracy is supposed to work. Mm-hmm. Not in the board. We have the only unelected school board in the state. It's controlled by the mayor. They are supposed to be an independent body. They do not act as an independent body. So we're supposed to just be out here guessing. And I mean, I really do want to stress people are very upset. I mean, we are in touch with people at some of these schools. You may have seen the Inquirer story about the one parent at Moffett Elementary who filed a complaint with the Human Relations Commission. Like, they are very upset. They love their school. Their kids love their school. They have an autistic program there that has been incredibly beneficial to those kids. And it's just, they're desperate. They're so upset that they are going to lose the school that they have put so much into, that their kids love, where all their kids' friends are. I mean, this is not a corporation that you right size. It's a school district. It's something that is supposed to benefit children. And this plan is not written that way at all.
Yeah. So, Lisa, where can people learn more about the Alliance for Philadelphia Public Schools?
Apps, well, you can always find us at a board meeting. We're in city council. Anytime a school issue is being discussed, we are there. We are, excuse me, as I said, all these meetings. We're on just about any social media, Instagram, X, whatever's left of that, Blue Sky, etc. And you can always find us on our website.
All right, Lisa Haver, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Always.
Thanks, guys.
So, Denise, we have been lucky enough to be covering the budget hearings this week and last week and until they're over.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Yeah. Well, it's been all right. We enjoy it. So, because we've done this, other people don't have to, and we can just tell them what happened. And that's a little bit of what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to bring up that slideshow, but I got to figure out where to start it. It needs to start on the Chief Administrative Officer, because this year I'm using one slide show. I'm not making multiple ones. So I'm just filling in as I go. Yeah. So there's like 100 slides on this thing already. Am I on it? Okay. So what I'm going to do, how about we do this? I'll start off by saying what it is, and we'll talk a little bit about what they said, and then we'll go from there.
You got it. So
this is yesterday. The first office that came up was the Chief Administrative Officer. So what do they do? Well, this office creates and supports conditions for the City of Philadelphia's Department and Workforce to deliver efficient, effective, and equitable city services while enhancing quality of life for all residents, visitors, and communities. Basically, they oversee a lot of different things. They handle kind of government stuff. They handle some long-term stuff. So there's a lot of different things they do. So this is one of the first steps or first stops if the mayor's looking to make a change in something or do something a little differently. Okay. It's an important office, and it oversees a lot of different things. So their budget last fiscal year, the 2026 fiscal year, was almost $12 million. This year, it's just over $12 million. And what that's really for is for support, the people who work there, who make all the plans, that kind of stuff. So they also, a few months ago, we had an interview with the group that helps to troubleshoot different problems and how to solve them in government, and that they work under these guys. So there's a lot of different things that these guys do. It's an interesting office. But I didn't think there was anything particularly noteworthy that came out of that discussion. What about you, Denise?
Not really. I mean, you had, there was a lot of discussion of process, but there wasn't anything earth-shattering that came out of this.
No, nothing surprising. So all in all, solid budget hearing. Nobody got upset. So nothing bad came of that one. And so that's what they do, the Chief Administrative Officer. Mm-hmm. Next, we're going to go to Office of Human Resources. So just like any other, like a company, the City of Philadelphia has to have an Office of Human Resources to staff the place, right? Mm-hmm. So they handle doing job postings. They handle if you have a complaint, if there is an issue with your benefits, something like that. That's what they do. Okay. If you're a city employee, these are your guys who are your first stop if there's an issue. Their budget in 2026 was just over 18.5 million. This year it'll be closer to 23 million. One of the things that we hear a lot about when it comes to the Office of Human Resources is, why do we have so many city vacancies? About 20 to 25% of the city jobs are vacant. And one of the issues seems to be it takes a long time between when the job is posted, when people apply, when they do interviews, and then when they make the hire. So when this happens, and it takes a long time, people will get other jobs who otherwise come here. So it creates this sort of situation where, you know, your best candidates are already gone, and maybe they just say, well, we're not going to do this now. We'll do another search later. And then the same thing keeps happening. So that's one of the issues we keep hearing about the Office of Human Resources. Plus, they, you know, one of the questions they always get is, what are you doing to advertise to let people know about these positions? I remember a few years ago, and I remember Councilmember Curtis Jones brought this up a couple of years ago. It was February, right? It was cold here, snowy, and there was a billboard on I-95 that the city of Orlando put here that said, come be a police officer in Orlando, where you can be on the beach every day. The pay was more, and they had a huge signing bonus. And I remember Councilmember Jones being incredulous, thinking, well, why can they do that here? And why can't we do something similar? Why don't we even have an ad campaign for this? Well, that's some of the stuff that the Office of Human Resources should be doing. Not a contentious.
I have to agree with the councilman. Why aren't they doing it?
Right. Not necessarily a contentious hearing, just questioned along those lines is what we heard. How are we going to do it? And, you know, what are we going to make sure we're doing? Do we get the right candidates, that people want to stay? Because another issue that the city has is people will start their career here, but then they'll leave because they'll get more pay and really better conditions somewhere else.
That was one of the motivations behind the drop program.
Yeah.
They were the city was tired of losing really good people because they would get better money somewhere else. And if you had a certain amount of time in, you could do the deferred program and get a nice chunk of money right then and there.
In some
quit
cases,
for a day and then come back to work.
In some cases, well over $100,000.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of people who really didn't have to come back to work after drop because of how much they had.
So these are some of the issues that still exist. And I feel like for as long as I've been covering local government, which is 10 years now, I've been hearing about this, and it doesn't seem like it's changed a whole lot.
Well, one of the questions that Council Member Jeffrey Young asked yesterday that I thought was interesting was, if we can't hire people, can we use that money for something else? Because you can't hire someone doesn't take away the need for them to be there. But I can understand where he was coming from on that, because there are a lot of issues that the city has that if that money that you put away to hire people isn't being used, unless it's in an account drawing some really serious interest, it's just kind of sitting there.
And what I think invariably happens with that money is, if, you know, a department has that extra money at some point, let's say in the middle of the year when they do the mid-year transfer ordinance,
right?
Well, they didn't hire them. They didn't hire the 10 people they were supposed to hire, so we can move that money somewhere else now.
Exactly. They're going to spend it.
It happens every year. Every year that happens. And it almost makes you wonder, well, maybe how hard did they really look? Because maybe they wanted that money just to be there in case they needed it.
They wanted to use it for whatever it was they wanted to use it for.
Right. I've heard that argument raised. I can't say it doesn't completely make sense. So, all right, what do we got next? How do I do it? Oh, okay, Denise. Now this is where
that was the most interesting part of yesterday's hearings.
So
the
this one,
Office of Innovation and Technology.
this is one that didn't go as well as everybody hoped, I think. A little bit of unpleasantness here. So the Office of Innovation and Technology, and there's a couple of weird things that happened here in this hearing. So let me just tell you what they do. They handle all the computer stuff, right? That's the very basic way to put it. The IT strategy, they implement things. They operate the city network. They do all these different things. The city's computer system is so old that I don't. Somebody told me they're not worried about hackers because hackers wouldn't be able to do anything to it because it's just so old.
They're that old?
Yeah. Somebody legitimately told me that. Like, we're just not worried about it because, you know, certain parts of it. I think some things have been hacked, but other parts, like, they're just nobody's going to do anything. They're still using like floppy disks, from what I've been told.
Oh my God!
It's insane. So there. One of the things I learned though, and I got to get a little more clarity on this. Somebody brought up, hey, this other department, maybe Parks and it was about Parks and Rec. You know, they have something they're working on. Are you overseeing it? You know, with technology, and OIT said no, they handle their own stuff. What about this other department? Well, they handle their own stuff. Well, this other department, now they handle their own. Well, who's
what
left?
What do y'all do?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't really know what they did after that for a while.
You know, because and the thing is, and it was mostly Councilmember Rue Landau, who's the head of Council's Technology Committee, who made some very good points about the fact that OIT should be overseeing everything.
Yeah.
That the city does from a technological standpoint because of the issue of hacking and other things that you bring up.
And I assume they did.
Exactly. And there was one point where the head of OIT was going on this rant about laptop computer giveaways. And I'm saying to myself, what's that got to do with the question that the council member asked? Because they were asking about artificial intelligence and what part artificial intelligence is played in certain city functions like hiring and different things. And this woman was stuck on laptops.
And you know, Councilman Landau had to say a couple of times, I'm not talking about the laptops anymore. I need you to basically, like a teacher would say, I need you to focus on this thing, you know? So that one didn't go great. The other thing that's really important about this hearing is when we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, what is that going to look like for the city of Philadelphia? And I don't feel like we got clear answers out of that.
No, we didn't. And it's not like Councilmember Landau didn't ask in at least 3 or 4 different ways.
And she's been asking since at least October, and really before that, because she had a hearing in October about that. And it was informative because you had the city testify first, the same people who were testifying yesterday for OIT, explaining what they were trying to do, and then experts coming up and saying, no, the city doesn't have the right idea here. And you really need to look at this again. And I still don't feel like those questions have been answered. And I got to be honest, that's not one I feel good about right now because, you know, we're already talking about, you know, we deal with computers all the time. Everybody uses them. The technology advances by the day, it feels like.
And I don't know in some cases.
Yeah. And I don't know if the city's on top of this.
Well, the thing is, as big a city as Philadelphia is, especially with, you know, all of the different, I mean, one thing about technology is that it is not going to wait for you to catch up.
Right.
And unfortunately, Philadelphia has always had this, that's the way we've always done it kind of mindset. And technology doesn't care that that's the way you've always done it. There are iterations of artificial intelligence right now that the people who originally created artificial intelligence are like, what?
Yeah.
You know, so if the people who invented this stuff can't keep track of what it's doing in real time. I would think that the city would say, okay, we need to get somebody who can stay on top of this.
Yes. And what you'll notice here is their budget's a little less this year than it was last year. The answer I got for that is because they had bought more stuff last year that they were implementing, and they're not going to do as much this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that happens in budget. So that's not a concern. But
or maybe they gave away, some additional laptops and they don't need
something like that. But what should be a concern is that AI policy.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, how we're handling technology in the city, because I didn't walk away from that one feeling confident. That's just
and the thing is, like I said, technology doesn't care that this is the way you've always done it.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Right. Here's another one that didn't go so great, Denise. Public property.
I almost felt bad for the gentleman who was testifying because, and we've talked about this before, about how we've sat through budget hearings during the first couple of years of the Parker administration. And the thing that council has heard the most often is, let me get back to you. I don't know. Or our personal favorite, I don't have my copy of the budget with me.
That will go down in the hall of infamy.
As I was sitting there listening to public property yesterday, I'm like, wow, this feels oppressively familiar.
So what do, Denise? The Department of Public Property coordinates all the basically the real estate of the city, the things that they own and the things that they rent. Okay. And doing other things like making sure that those buildings are, as green as they can be and all that. They had a budget of almost 325 million last year. This year it'll be about 341 million and a half, so a little bit, a good jump in that. But what happened in that hearing, and it was really interesting, it was Councilmember Curtis Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I think he led off, if I remember correctly, and just started asking basic questions.
Yeah.
How many leases does the city have? We're not sure. Okay. How many buildings do we own? We'll get back to you. What about this? What about that? We'll get back to you. What is our long-term deferred maintenance? How long has that been going on? What are the costs? We'll get back to you. And finally, Councilmember Jones said, if you don't know these answers, you need to bring somebody up who does. Mm-hmm. And that was the harshest admonishment we've seen so far.
And the thing is, when you consider stuff like the mayor's program to deal with street homelessness, the 1,000 new beds to deal with street homelessness, and the question that everyone keeps asking is, are there going to be new buildings? Are there going to be leased buildings? Are there going to be buildings the city already owns where you're going to put this 1,000 beds? Yeah. If people don't know how many buildings you own, how many buildings you lease, or the scheduled maintenance or any of those things, putting those 1,000 beds in buildings, your people aren't going to know how you're going to do this if we don't have the basics of what you have available.
And I'm not one of the people who believes you have to have the exact answer for every single thing. I don't think that's the case, but you should have an idea, right? Well, we have 200 leases. We have around 200. It's mm-hmm. around this much every year. I can get you the specific numbers today. We'll have them for you. That's a reasonable answer to me.
Right. I don't think, and that's kind of what people want. They're not asking you for the exact number at that moment. But I think that Councilmember Jones would have been satisfied if you could tell him a ballpark figure.
Sure.
And then say, I can get you the exact number when I get back to my office, or I can, send that information to you later. But this is the ballpark. So that way, when council decides what it wants to do, it's got something to work off of.
And knowing Councilmember Jones the way we do, because we see him a lot, and we were actually just chatting with him right before that the mm-hmm. hearing started, that'd be a perfectly fine answer. He'd say, okay, that sounds good. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. So the next department, did I bring that up already?
No.
Nope, there it is. Fleet services. Basically, these guys run the vehicles. And, the city has a lot of different vehicles. One of the questions that came up, and I thought this was pretty interesting, they are looking to move a lot of vehicles to electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So their goal is to get it to about 1,000 electric vehicles by, I think, 2032 is what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, do a reassessment to see how those vehicles are holding up.
Mm-hmm.
That to me sounds like a very reasonable idea. Let's ramp up to it and then just see where we end up. That sounds good to me. And
Right.
I think it's the right direction. And they're going to build out more infrastructure as they're going. So it's kind of a planned thing. Right now, they have 6 sites in the city for municipal vehicles that are electric to get charged up. And as they buy more, they will build more of that infrastructure. And the one thing they said, though, is they're not ready to buy like the heavy equipment and electric heavy equipment because they're just not sure the technology is where it needs to be yet. That's another reasonable answer to me. But in time, maybe when we get to 2032, they'll say, okay, let's try some of this now. So they came off looking pretty good. Their budget.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, electric cars have been and electric charging stations have been a discussion in the city for a long time now. Back when he was a council person, Councilman David O.
Yeah.
Brought this up a lot and was trying to move the city forward on it a lot. So.
Yeah, and now is a time to really look into that because there's actually the city's made it a little more difficult. If you want to have an electric car and you're a citizen, it's a little more challenging now to get like the I don't think you can even get the charging station up front of your house anymore.
No, you can't.
So
in fact, I think the only charging station I can come up with off the top of my head is at the Wawa.
Yeah.
By the Chick-fil-A
at the
when
Navy
you're
Yard.
coming off of I-95 from Delaware.
Yeah, at the Navy
It's in
Yard.
South Philly.
Yeah. So, but they came off pretty well. They knew what they were talking about, and they had a good plan. I think everybody thought what they said was reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get to the next one. Where are we?
See, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend today's hearings, but Human Services and Children and Family Services were the two I was most interested in.
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about Human Services. So these guys do a lot with children, youth, families. But one of the things that, and like, so if God forbid a child needs to be taken from their parents for some reason, these guys deal with it. They try to find them a place to go, that kind of stuff. Really hard stuff, I think. And there's a couple issues here. The starting salary for a social worker in the city is $45,000 a year. Now, it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but it's not enough, especially because most of these people have master's degrees.
And they also have caseloads that are, and there have been far too many instances, and I know because I've written stories about them, where a child has fallen through the cracks at DHS and ended up dead.
Yes, and that's happened. And, when you have the turnover, because a lot of these people have student loans for 2 degrees. They're not making a lot. They have a really big caseload. They get some experience here, and then they move to the suburbs and they get a job in one of the counties where they get more money and they don't have as many people to deal with. Like, it's understandable. These people got into this because they're altruistic, but you can only push them so far, The other thing that came up in this hearing are the CUAs, which are the community umbrella organizations that the city contracts to deal with some of these things. I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. The city kind of gave this to organizations instead of doing it themselves, with the idea being we're going to save money and it'll improve the overall. And I don't understand how you ever say we're going to save money and it will improve. I don't get that. It didn't. There are problems. And, Councilmember Cindy Bass is on this every budget hearing. And not just budget hearings, but all the time we talk about it, She's really, really laser focused on this. So they had to answer some questions about that. Apparently, however, the methodology that they use to measure the success of these CUAs, the community organizations, has improved. There are better outcomes. All right, well, that's good. But in the grand scheme of things, are we even using the right system here? And I think that's a big question.
Well, they had nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
Because one of the stories I wrote was about a child who was basically starved to death by her mother.
Yeah.
Because the CUA that was supposed to be keeping an eye on this family not only, dropped the ball, but then they tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
They ended up finding this child's file in the bottom, and I will never forget this, in the bottom of a box that was where it was covered by papers and McDonald's wrappers.
Yeah.
And when you can outsource certain things and it might and you might end up getting better service, but there are certain things that you shouldn't outsource under any circumstances because there's human beings attached to them.
Yeah.
And if a child is in the custody of the Department of Human Services, if their parent has a caseworker working with them about this particular child, something has already gone wrong. And if something has already gone wrong, making it worse is ultimately going to hurt the child. And you make it worse by not keeping an eye on who is taking care of that child, of that family, of that set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And, I hope that things are going up, but like I said, they've got nowhere else to go.
Yep. Mayor's Office of Education is next. They're kind of like the intermediary between the mayor's office, the school district, and then other offices that can function with the school district.
Which is why their budget is so small.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of people in that department. But the notable thing here is they got questions about the school closings. In their defense, it isn't exactly their purview as to what happens with that. On the other hand, though, the answer kept being, well, that's what the district does. That's the district, they handle that. Not what people want to hear.
No.
So that hearing was okay. I don't think there was a big issue there, but at the same time, council doesn't want to hear that. And quite frankly, nobody else does.
Well, when before the school district was taken over by the state through the School Reform Commission, John Street, when he was mayor, had taken over oversight of the school district, which is why you have the mayor's office of education.
Yeah.
And now that the school district is back under local control, people kind of expect the mayor's office, since the mayor, is kind of in charge of the school district under the way that things are structured, they kind of expect that, folks in that department can say more than that's the district.
Yeah.
Now if it were an elected school district, you could say that.
Yeah. So we're going to end in a minute. Just Parks and Rec went pretty well. Almost $90 million budget. And then the libraries were next. No real issue there. The budget went up a little bit to about $78 million. So nothing really contentious there. We will have a lot more budget coverage next week here on Hall Monitor. Thank you for being with us.